You guys hear that music? That means it's time to start the show. If you're just tuning in and turning on your radio, this is the beginning of the Business to Business Network show. My name is Rex Perry, and for over 20 years, we've been doing a 1-hour business show, business, politics, and economics. So we're trying to educate the listeners on how all those three things come together, and these important decisions that we make really do affect our lives. Our first guest for the show is James. James, give us your last name. Introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, James, I go by Jim Barton, and I'm an attorney at Barton Mendez Soto, where I'm one of the founding partners there, and I practice political law and election law here in Arizona.
Now, give us a little bit of background on that, because you probably work with political action committees, PACs, right?
I do. I represent some political parties in Arizona, which is a specific classification of political action committee, if you will. I do have candidate clients, and I also represent both political action committees, like formal political action committees that are described to the IRS as political action committees, as well as a number of nonprofit organizations which do issue advocacy and participate in government and governance, but are not formally formed as political action committees.
Excellent. Okay, now this is important stuff. I off the air, we kind of rehearsed a little bit. I just forgot to mention Rick Ramsey. Does that name ring a bell with you at all? He was a congressional representative on the west side of Phoenix and somehow commingled some funds that he had raised through his campaign, and either vice versa, either used funds and actually supported his business. I think he was in real estate.
Uh-huh.
Does that ring a bell at all?
Well, that name doesn't. I mean, that kind of thing does pop up from time to time. We had another fella who used his campaign signs, happened to look an awful lot like his business signs, and there was some consternation about whether he was advertising his business while he was running for office, which, strictly speaking, is kind of not a problem for election law, right? Election law wants to make sure you don't use your business advertising money in your election campaign. But yeah, for sure it happens. It's not okay, right? We have special rules for political action.
That's why you have a law.
You have a law. That's right. You have a law, and the law is, for example, you can raise money into your political campaign. You don't pay taxes on that. But the reason why you don't have to pay taxes on it is you got to follow certain rules. And among those rules are you have to disclose all the money that comes in and all the money that goes out, so we can make sure, and the public can make sure, that you're following the rules with it.
We're just, for example, in Texas, I was listening to the news, and they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on these primary campaigns. Mm-hmm. And I've always asked myself, is there a way to get a percentage of that money to help poor people, or help? Have you ever had this conversation?
Well, I have had that conversation. I have a little bit different take on it. So first off, when you say they, a lot of who you're talking about are people who are not formally connected to the campaigns, right? Ah. So these are independent expenditure groups, and these are people who are they're not formally connected to the campaign. We can talk if you want about whether their influence is really zero or not. On the question of the amount of money we spend, that's a lot of money. How much money do we spend on football?
Yeah.
How much money do we spend on Doritos?
Yeah.
I mean, to be frank, if we were able to just sort of control the economy and move dollars where we wanted, sure, I think I probably would put a lot more money in education and a lot more money in feeding the poor, for sure. But honestly, the amount of money that we spend as a total of the money out of our economy towards talking about elections, I'm not worried about it being too high. I'd like for it to be a little more honest, but I'm not worried about us devoting too much time to thinking about how to basically run the government. Remember, the citizens are the sovereigns, and educating them is really important.
Yeah, education. But see, sometimes these attack ads aren't a lot of information. They don't really educate how the system works. I have conversations with people that are, all they can do is complain about Congress. And I said to a very good friend of mine, as we're driving to church last Sunday, I said, hey, I don't want to run for office. Mm-hmm. First of all, it's a pain in the neck, and I don't want that pressure. Mm-hmm. Number two, I don't want to go sit in all these committee meetings day after day. People don't appreciate when you hire somebody on the city council or the school board or different things, or state congressional representatives. It's a lot of meetings.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, and I don't want to do that. I'm trying to hire somebody willing to do that.
That's right.
So that's why we got to educate people. Complain, and that doesn't help anything. Now let's switch over to our concept we're trying to talk about is digitaldemocracyproject.org. Digitaldemocracyproject.org. Anybody out there, Google that. This is a great idea two young guys out of, I think they're out of MIT. I know they're located in Boston. They were in Austin, not Boston, Austin, having a hackathon competition to see who could come up with a really clever smartphone app. And they developed a system where you do a facial recognition photo, and then your passport, your driver's license, some sort of photo ID, and then through their database, they're able to pollinate or cross-check your registration status for District 5 Gilbert. I think that's the right district. So they can say this guy's authorized to vote in that. So they're getting registered voters down to congressional districts. Your thoughts on something like that?
Well, I mean, certainly I think our cell phones are right now the state of the art we use for personal recognition, right? I mean,
banking.
That's right. That's the first thing that comes to mind, right? Any kind of banking you buy. You know, we just purchased a office building for my law firm, and you know that's how we verify things a lot of times when you're dealing with the loans back and forth to sort of show that you are the person who's signing the document. All these things are our passports are using photo recognition that can be triggered off our phones. So I think it would be frankly silly to say that there's anything better. I mean, does a handwriting comparison of a signature better than a photo
really.
ID from a phone? No. You know, can a phone be hacked? Yeah, but so can a ballot box can be hacked. I mean, you know, it's one of these things where you have to compare the system that you're looking at to the other system, not to perfection.
Yeah.
So I think if the question is, should we trust using our cell phones to identify people, I think the answer is yes. Then there's some follow-on questions, right?
And what their concept is to have, they call it blockchain. Everybody's eyes roll in the back of their head as I say blockchain. But what that is basically is thousands and thousands of individual computers, they call them servers, spread all over the United States in different buildings, so that if somebody tampers with one server, all of the other servers get red flags saying, no. This is what it was. Don't try to steal the election. So it's a great way to protect us, at the same time move things forward. Now we're trying to do this in a form of a straw poll.
Right.
That's where we're starting. So if we can get a congressional district where umpteen thousand registered voters are willing to go online, and then the congressional representatives say, hey guys, we got a vote coming up on abortion. I mean, some of these, gun control, the border. If we can get all of those different people with a consensus, and by the way, the language needs to be real simple. Plus, they need to have some sort of explanation of what's the goal here, what's going on. So again, you just said education. Now we get a chance to educate, and then we get a chance to vote. Your feelings on a straw poll?
Well, I think, and I like the idea of this as sort of a straw poll on steroids, right? It's like you know specifically who's doing it. You're able to connect it to fundraising, maybe. You're able to connect it to support. I think there's a lot of great things about it. I think anytime you talk about a survey, you know, you have issues of how reliable is the survey. We have things like randomness. If what you really want to care about is what does the average person in Gilbert think, that's a little different than what do the most engaged people in Gilbert think.
Yeah.
And you identify the education stuff by itself. We have representative democracy. The reason the United States has representative democracy is we are of the understanding that, well, frankly, when it started, probably there were certain people who were better and should be deciding. I don't think anybody thinks that now. But we think, like you said, like sort of specialization. So we think we should rely on some specialists to process the information, to do the research, and to speak for us. So it seems like in the United States, our understanding of democracy is it should be representative. And so maybe we want to rely some on leadership from our politicians, not just parroting our views.
Yes.
That being said, it is pretty upsetting when you look at what's popular and what becomes law.
Yeah.
It's almost unrelated. There's almost no correlation.
Yeah, let's take this example, gun control. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say gun control because a majority of the United States wants a real universal background check. They want to be able to have licensing. They want to have some sort of, because we've seen these tragic shootings, and also not even the shootings that don't even make the news.
Right.
I mean, you've got cities like Chicago. I think things are getting better. I have a son that lives in Chicago, slowly but surely, but there's got to be efforts to save lives here. And we get certain NRA, National Rifle Association, that fight tooth and nail, and yet 80% of the United States wants it, but we can't get anything done.
Yeah, I mean, gun control is a perfect example. It's an issue where you have a whole bunch of money on, particularly on, I mean, to some extent on both sides, but particularly the pro-gun lobby is like so over funded that you have weird stuff happen. Where like even if you want to try and say you want to have literally manufacturing safety laws that relate to firearms, so that they literally don't hurt the people using them, that can be very difficult to pass. So yeah, But I guess what I wonder about is the problem that the politicians don't know that? Is it the problem they don't know that their constituents would favor a law like that? Or do they know it, but they also know where their bread is buttered?
Yeah.
And I don't know, but maybe this system that you've sort of described a little bit, maybe it addresses that if to the extent there's like a fundraising component of it. So maybe it gives some people a little bit of courage to say, well, I know I'm going to not get a check from the NRA, or my NRA check is not going to be quite as big this time around, but I know I have, these 100,000 people. I have their email addresses, and I'm going to tell them, hey, I just got turned off by the NRA. Cut me a check for $15 or something.
Yeah, but my argument is that we might be able to reduce the amount of money that the congressional representatives every 24 months have to raise just to stay in office. If we have a good, solid support system within their district that they know they can rely on for voting, and then if somebody comes in to try to primary them, they've got it's a congressional People's Congress.
Yeah.
They get a chance to weigh in on this. And anyway, we might be able to. I think it's sometimes obscene the amount of money that's spent trying to keep people. Your thoughts on that? We get about 2 minutes.
Well, I say we do have a system in Arizona called the Clean Election System that does that by funding.
And you helped with that, didn't you?
I did help with it, yes. And I think that would have been, it's unfortunately been damaged by a Supreme Court decision, but it's still a good system. I think we did see some fruit from that. The idea that you would have greater confidence in your voters turning out, I do love that. I mean, I like it. I would tell you I've been in politics enough to be suspicious of whether it works.
I know. It's so hard. You try to come up with a good idea, and then it gets off on a tangent or somebody wrestles away. We've got about 60 seconds. If people would like to reach you, you have a phone number, contact, website. How can people reach you?
BartonMendezSoto.com. That's BartonMendezSoto.com. That's how you can get in touch with me.
Okay. And again, if there's anybody that's thinking about running for office or forming a political action committee, anybody in the politics, you need a good attorney.
Yeah, you do need a good attorney, and we can certainly chat with you. I will tell you that we do more work for organizations and less work directly for candidates. But in any case, we certainly would be happy to give a conversation.
Got a minute left, and now say the name again.
BartonMendezSoto.com.
And what we're going to do is we'll put that on our YouTube channel. All of our videos are uploaded there. You'll see contact information. Your website will be there. And if you can stay with us, we got another segment to do. Everybody, we got to do a commercial break here. My name is Rex Perry. If you miss anything and want to get a hold of anybody here, 123bz.com. Easy website. 123, the numbers, B as in boy, Z as in zebra.com. Stay tuned. We're going to be right back.